The Bills steamroll the Broncos Saturday, further legitimizing their championship expectations. With the regular season in arm's reach, Bills brass are forced to make tough decisions regarding cuts and overall roster moves. All that and more coming right your way. This is the Friday Night Forecast.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming to rep the East. Buffalo bat with a vengeance, we resurrected the team, man, we dangerous. Watch for these horns, they lacerate and cut. We don't play no game while we play this game, no, I play in us. You know what it's about, you made me wanna shout. They said to take it now, we took another route. Deuces to the drought, play through all the doubters, finger pointing and laughing. The ones that was talking that trash are the same ones circling wagons, we ain't having it. Dominate divisions ever since we put the Allen in. Knocks the competition out the stadium like hammer fist. Stephon Diggs a grave and he pays respects to the cornerbacks that can't cover quickness, then he catches it. In 1995 to 2020, break the streak. Kept the faith in every season for the team, cause I believe. Taught me no matter how many times you're down, do not accept defeat. Feel like number 17. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen, yeah. What? You got me feeling like I'm Josh. Okay. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen, yeah. Josh. Yeah. Got me feeling like I'm who? Josh. Yeah. Josh Allen. Yeah. Succeed the most in the freezing cold. Break a couple tables in a parking lot with sleet and snow. Yeah. Put the work in with Sean McDermott, a worthy coach. Y'all can get the hands like a Wilson ball when it's Beasley thrown. Yeah. Got so many yards to the point we owning property. I remember haters talking foolish with that gossiping, but they don't want it with Buffalo. Cause when the winter storm hits, they'll be stuck with nowhere to go. Let's play Micah hide and seek. We'll find a week up on the field. Say hike and we'll unleash the likes of Trey White and Evans. All kinds of D. Back in the driver's seat, the Singletary. He's sprinting scary to carry the ball through the plane. Embarrass these adversaries, prepare to be victimized. We gave New England pats up on their back. Told New York to check, they left the scene and packed their bags. Went fishing for some dolphins, left them beats up on the sand. AFC East champs. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen, yeah. What? You got me feeling like I'm Josh. Okay. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen, yeah. Josh. Got me feeling like I'm who? Josh. Yeah. Josh Allen.
Happy Thursday, Bills Mafia. Welcome to a special episode of the Friday Night Forecast on the Cold Front Report. I am your host, Travis Blakesley. Thank you for tuning in tonight. Again, Thursday. We're going the day before the game, so nothing wrong with the day early. So please go ahead, show us some love. Like, share, and subscribe so that you can stay up to date with all things Bills. And remember, you can listen to the show and any other of our shows in podcast form by searching for the Cold Front Report on your favorite audio app. Tonight, I am rejoined by my co-host, Cody NY. How are we doing, Cody?
Doing well. Glad to be back after a week off. It's preseason for the Bills and it's preseason for us, so definitely good to get some time on camera and on the mic here.
Yeah, you got to get reps before the season starts. We're less than 2 weeks away, man. It's
excited.
It's very exciting. And before we get into the show, let's give a rundown of what happened while we were away. The Buffalo Bills dismantled the Denver Broncos 42-15 in their second preseason game, and the first with their starters on the field. All three quarterbacks combined for just 3 incomplete passes on 29 attempts. While the passing game was near perfect, the biggest difference was how good the run game looked. The Bills amassed 208 yards on 27 carries, with 4 of them going for touchdowns, leaving many to believe that the O-line coach Aaron Kromer may be the biggest addition this offseason. The Bills made some noise with some cuts, including Matt Hawk and Tavon Austin. Cody Ford was traded to the Arizona Cardinals for a 5th-round pick. So, lots of news, lots of people moving around. This is the time of the year where you get a lot of bubble players and a lot of guys who think they can start in the league asking for trades or early releases so they can catch on with other teams. Cody, discuss the week that was. Overall thoughts, comments, questions, or concerns.
Yeah, I think we can start with Cromer because we touched on him a couple weeks ago. Um, if this past game was any you know bar for which we can see the rest of the season going, we're in for a bit of a treat. I think we've heard from other guys like retired players like Eric Wood who said that he really tailors the way he coaches to individual players, and he doesn't try to fit a square peg into a round hole, so they say. And I think that the players are responding. The O-line looks great. You saw in the game against Denver, they were pushing again, it's against backup players, but they're pushing these guys back 5-6 yards every rush. And the game that we put on in rushing was pretty incredible. I don't know what the numbers ended up being. I think it was over 200 yards.
208.
208. And you saw guys from Blackshear to Cook to everyone kind of getting in on the action, and everybody looked good. So I'm excited going forward to see, if we can keep this up, because it would be a huge step forward for our offense if we're not relying on Josh Allen and that passing game. In other news, just to touch on Cody Ford, another thing that we broke up, we both said we didn't think that Bobby Hart and Cody Ford would both make this roster. News came out that Cody Ford wanted to be a starter. It wasn't going to happen here. So I think a player that is in his fourth year, really in a contract year as a second-round player, you don't have that fifth-year option. A backup player, getting a fifth-round pick for him, for a guy that's been up and down and that we've discussed it at length here, I think it's a great deal for Brandon Beane. And I guess Bobby Hart showed enough inside at guard to warrant the move.
Yeah, I think the biggest point a lot of people were bringing, I think it was Shaq Mason. They got the Patriots got a fifth-round pick for him, and there's quite a large gap in talent there. But like you said, I mean, you got 3 years out of him, and for those 3 years, you drop down 3 rounds. So the fact that you could get something out of someone who probably wouldn't have made the team, and even if they did, they're not going to be active. Chances are he's not. He's a guy who only fills one hole. He can only play guard, where Bobby Hart plays every position besides center.
Right.
And clearly there's something about Bobby Hart that this coaching staff and organization likes, because despite all of the negativity surrounding him, and it's not just being on the Bills, but I remember there was a lot of internet hate on him, the QAnon type things. The guy's got some thick skin and he's resilient. So if you get a coach like Aaron Cromer to turn it around and really make a difference, it's good to see. So I think that kind of answers that question. And good for Cody Ford. If he goes on and he ends up starting in Arizona and makes some waves, good for him. I don't think it's somebody that we necessarily need to be upset. It just didn't work out. You already have people on the internet talking about who we could have drafted in that second round instead of Cody Ford. It's like, listen, you don't get all the picks right 100% of the time. So the fact that we're able to recoup something, and it didn't seem like they went out on bad terms. So that's always good to see. Although you weren't here last week, me and Jeremy, we were talking about wide receivers who they're going to keep, and Tavon Austin was somebody who Jeremy was getting me intrigued about because it made a lot of sense. Veteran presence, somebody who can return kicks or punts. Didn't really seem to catch on. He really spent a lot of time injured. Any surprise for you on the Tavon Austin cut?
No, to be honest, I thought he was a long shot to make this roster from the jump. He's on the wrong side of 30 now, which doesn't mean much for some players, but some other guys like him, who's been on the training table quite often in his career, been nicked up since he got here. So you're not getting that, time and repetition that you're needed to make a difficult room to make. And that wide receiver room, like we've talked about it, is pretty stacked. We feel good for the players at the top of the roster. And then, if you're the number 6, number 7 wide receiver, he doesn't play special teams. I think that weighs into the decision. And Khalil Shakir has showed out in preseason and in practice, and I think they're always gonna give it to the draft pick over a guy that's on the back end of his career. So no surprise there for me. No.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much rounds up last week. So let's move on with our first segment. We're going to go with a little fake news or not. I'll give you a little rapid fire question. You just let me know, is it fake news? Is it true? And why? So first we'll start. Quessenberry is going to start over Spencer Brown week 1.
Fact.
You think? Do you think this ramp up is strictly, I should say, the lack of having Spencer Brown involved? Do you think it's 100% injury related, or do you think that Quessenberry is a better player at this point in time regarding Spencer Brown and his career?
I think if Spencer Brown was healthy at this point, he'd be starting. I think Quessenberry was brought in knowing that Spencer Brown was going under the knife with a back injury, and he became insurance, and he's a solid player. He's been a starter in this league. Spencer Brown's got to knock that rust off. They always say the best ability is availability. Right now he's available, but he hasn't been all training camp. And I think they'll head into the season kind of rolling with the hot hand. Quessenberry's looked good. He's a solid player, solid at right tackle. It gives time for Spencer Brown to try to, get his feet underneath him, not rush back, be healthy, and we'll see where we are in 2-3 weeks. I think Quessenberry starts the season at right tackle.
I'm going to go ahead with giving that a true as well. For the same reasons, one thing I just wanted to mention was we all know Spencer Brown has a little bit of mean streak in him. He is not, he's very privy to receive some after the whistle penalties or, unsportsmanlike conduct. And I can guarantee he would have been on a short leash. He would be a guy where you would see him off the field, if he lost his cool, because Quessenberry, like you said, I mean, it's 1B in my opinion. Spencer Brown has more upside, but, he showed in a couple games where he had a couple penalties tacked onto him, and a lot of time it had to do with the composure or lack thereof. I got a spider crawling up the
right, and I do. Spencer Brown is one of the players on this roster that I'm most excited for going
Me too.
forward. And so I don't think this is like kind of even really a step back for him. I just think that we have a solid player in the position that he plays, and
who's been there all season,
right?
Or all preseason.
The line has looked very, very good. He's been working with Cromer. Give him a little bit more time on task, and he'll come back better than he was.
All right, number 2, Trey White starts the season on either IR or PUP.
Yeah, true. I think he starts on PUP.
Do you buy into any of the not using the team doctor, the miscommunication or lack thereof communication that you've been hearing about that may or may not be true?
I mean, it's a fact that he didn't go with the Bills doctors, but as far as communication,
which happens a lot. I mean, people need to understand, you pick
right,
your doctor.
This isn't something out of left field, but as far as the communication, I'd call bullshit on that. Trey White's one of those guys that he's, always puts his nose down, works hard, comes back in great shape. I just don't see it from that player. If we were talking about a different player, maybe I would buy into it a little bit more. I don't really for him. Unfortunately, another player, Brandon Beane said it, they're going to run down the clock before they make the call on PUP. But I think you've seen what Benford and Elam and Dane Jackson. I don't want to go into the Rams game that way. If I'd love to go have Trey White on the field. He makes his team better. He's our number 1 corner. But if he's not ready, he's not ready. So I think he ends up on PUP. I think we'll see it next week. I'm hoping against it, but I think it's true.
Before we move on to the next one, do you think the play of the young corners have anything to do with or let me rephrase that. If they didn't have the play of these young corners, do you think they would be more, more, would there be a better chance of them rushing him back a little sooner?
No, I don't think so. I think we've all seen during the McDermott era that they kind of lean on the side of caution when it comes to injured players, and it's really worked out for this team. We haven't dealt too much with long-term injuries. We've been one of the healthiest teams in NFL, and I think when you have a star player on a big contract, coming off of a major knee injury, you just don't rush them back. It's not worth 4 games to miss the whole season. So
Yeah.
I don't. I think it's certainly a plus, and it's like a godsend almost that the corners are playing so well. But I don't think it really makes a difference on whether Trey White starts on PUP or not.
All right, moving on. Epinesa is a training camp hero versus taking that next step this year.
Well, he's been a training camp hero the last couple of years, and a lot of the things that you hear about him is he's always better when the pads aren't on. And the guy's got a great get off. We know that. I think, I don't know if it's PFF, and I don't buy too much into PFF anyway, but I think it's his time off the ball at the snap is top tier, or like number 1 in the NFL, somewhere around there.
Which is surprising because he was a power rusher in college.
Yeah, and his weight has fluctuated. You don't really expect that, I think, when you look at him. He doesn't seem like that type of player. So, I'm going to go with fake news and say this is the year, with Von Miller, and the pass rush and just I think this is the year that he does take that step. So I'm going to go. Was it fake news? Was that he's going to be fake, fake news?
You think he's going to make the next step?
I hope so.
Well, I'm going to say it's true, just so that in spite of my answer, I can be proved wrong, because it would be great to see him pan out. But
yeah,
up until this point, that's all he has been. And when you hear reporters talking about, the pads on, it was the McKenzie thing when the pads came on, and guess what? McKenzie elevated his game. Epinesa, he had some pressures last week, but it's put up or shut up. I think we're tired of the Jerry Hughes of the world that are getting pressure, but you got to affect the play. I don't need a sack, but I need a clear effect of the play. Moving on, we got 2 more. Elam will share snaps in week 1. So whether that means it's platooning or he's rocky to start or loses composure or what have you, get a couple penalties. Do you see Elam playing 100% of the snaps week 1?
100% of the snaps is a tough that's a tough
well
call.
Okay, outside of a pop or getting injured,
yeah,
clearly we've seen platoon cornerbacks. Are we going to see more of that, or is he going to be out there and have his growing pains?
I think he's going to be out there and have his growing pains. I think Dane Jackson starts, and I think they will give him the opportunity to live up to his draft status right off the bat. Now, if he blows it, we're not going to just, decide, it's just a raining, it's just a training day here. We're playing the Rams week 1. No, I think that the leash isn't going to be super short because you don't want to zap the kid for confidence. But if Benford gets on the field, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah, I'm going to go with true, because you're right. You can't just pull the cord. So that's why I think the whole plan going forward is to have it as not an open competition, because obviously that's happening in preseason, but more of a platoon, so that, the confidence doesn't get shaken. This is a part of the process. And, before long, I think he's going to be out there. Honestly, I even see him, let's say Trey White's out for 4 weeks. If he stays true, I can see him overpassing Dane Jackson, but that's down the road.
Well, you got to look at too. The Rams are going to go 3-4 wide, and you're going to need.
They're going to target him.
Absolutely, they're gonna target all those guys. I mean, they're gonna play their game. So it's up to us to step up to the challenge. So not looking too
All
far
right.
ahead, but yes, he will be out there. Both of them will be out there.
Lastly, Morris over Sweeney for tight end 3.
This one's tough. This one is tough. I mean, Quentin Morris is kind of the training camp darling right now for a lot of
There you
people.
go.
It's hard for me to comment on him. You see the preseason games, but you're not. We're not watching practice every day. But from all accounts and from the limited snaps that we have seen, he looks like a pretty explosive guy. And you know what? It might not even be Sweeney, because Sweeney has looked good. I mean, OJ Howard really hasn't shown up. Now, you can't say, well, he's a first round pick, and the contract. It's tough to get out from these contracts once these guys sign. But
Well, yeah,
I
that
would
one you're
say
not.
that Sweeney and Morris have probably outplayed Howard. So
I mean, the one thing that I have to say about OJ Howard is he's always been a good blocker, and I don't care what anyone's saying. They're not watching him blocking in preseason, and they're not watching him blocking in training camp. So
right.
when I see a tight end too, I'm looking for that more well-rounded tight end. So I'm fine with OJ Howard in that aspect. But as Jason Taylor, and let's see, is he the ex-player? I doubt it, but are we going to have a tight end 3? And if it was up to me, no, I'm going to run with those OJ Howard as my second and Reggie Gilliam. I mean, I'm using him as my if I need 3 athletic guys out in the field, you got it. And if you really
What about
need,
Dawson Knox?
well, that's what I mean. That's what I'm saying. Dawson Knox, OJ Howard, and obviously Gilliam. But
Right.
if you're looking for the big run blockers, that's why you have Tommy Doyle. He is the run blocking tight end, for lack of a better term. So
Yeah.
it's going to be interesting. It depends on what positions we want to be heavy at. But I agree with Jason that, a tight end 3 is a luxury when you have 5 competent DNs and 5 competent D tackles. And then you got the Christian Benford. And do you want to keep Cam Lewis? There's a lot of guys that may play more of a role than your tight end number 3. So I'm going to say fake news because I don't necessarily see either of them on the active roster, or actually the 53-man roster.
Just to comment on that, just for whatever, I do think that they keep 3 tight ends. And I'm not including Gilliam there. I'm putting him as a fullback.
Yeah, of course. He's his own unicorn.
But I think Sweeney, Howard, if we're not to get into too many projections, but I think Sweeney, Howard, and Knox all make the team. I think Sweeney is developing, and as much as Quentin Morris, I mean, I think, he'll be on the practice squad if they can get him on there. If he shows out too much, another team claims him. But I think at this point they want to keep developing Sweeney, and I don't think they're going to want to give up on him. So I think all 3 of those guys make the roster.
Will be interesting to see. And speaking of, keeping guys on the roster where you may have to allocate guys. Last year, like I said, we went a little heavy on the D line. Is it going to be the wide receiver group? Is it going to be the offensive line group? Is it going to be the defensive back group? Which position group do you want to see them carry an extra player on, and why?
Well, as I just mentioned, tight ends, we only kept 2 last year, Knox and Sweeney. So I think you are going one man heavier there by having OJ Howard. And, I've mentioned in the past that I think that they'll go a little bit more 2 tight end set, and that might be, that might not be true at all. We'll see going forward once we get into the regular season. But looking at other things, I think maybe safety might be the other one that I think going from 4 last year. I think maybe they keep 5 this year. Jaquan Johnson's a player they really like. Nick McLeod's a good player. Then you have Micah Poyer and Hamlin. It might be tough to get rid of one of those guys. So I think maybe you keep an extra safety, an extra tight end, and then as far as D end and D tackle, I think maybe we only keep maybe 5 defensive ends, And
Yeah, I feel like it's going to be one or the others at 5. One's going to be at 5. One's going to be at 4.
yeah,
You're talking about cutting obviously Anku's been on this team. Brandon Bryant has been coming up in a lot of conversations. So it's, can you get a Brandon Bryant on the practice squad again? Who knows? We know Mike Love
right.
is our perennial practice squad guy at defensive end, which makes Shaq Lawson DN number 5. It's tough there, but I think ultimately I'm going to go cornerback because of what you brought up about the safeties. If Cam Lewis can, if he is a viable break glass in case of an emergency as a safety, I think he offers way too much position flexibility, special teams ability to not keep him on the roster. There's a lot of guys where they may not be the 53rd best player that was on in the preseason, but because of those things, you have to do what makes sense. If we have them active on game day, what can they bring to the table? How many snaps? Can they play 15 snaps? I think that's a minimum. Why roster a guy and make them active when they're just going to sit on the bench? They got to be doing something. So to me, I think it's Cam Lewis, and I don't know, again, he's a cornerback by nature, but not too long ago, he was coming for Taron Johnson's job. So Cam Lewis is my guy, and I know I'm comfortable seeing Saran Neal as the backup nickel, but if a guy can play boundary inside and again break glass in case of emergency on the safeties, I'm definitely going to go with that.
Yeah, and we know McDermott and Bean love guys with versatility. So yeah, we'll see. I like you said, it depends. If Trey White goes to PUP, that'll open up another roster spot. So, Benford and Elam, Saran Neal, Dane Jackson, and you like Cam Lewis. Is there 6 or did you say 5?
Well, I guess it would be 5 if we send Trey to the PUP or IR or whatever. But even still, I mean, there's points in last season where we were rolling with 4 cornerbacks on game day.
Yeah.
And Kenny, you bring up a good point. Saran Neal can definitely play safety in a pinch. I think he's positionless. He's fast enough to play corner. He's physical enough to play safety in the box. He's one of those guys where I hope he gets the run that he deserves, because I've always been a Saran Neal fan, and I've gotten a lot of flack for it, but this guy stays on the team, and we haven't seen him in preseason, and I know a lot of it's doing it because of being a gunner, but I mean he lined up next to Travis Kelce the last time we beat Kansas City. So yes, I do believe he can play safety, that hybrid jack role, whatever you want to call it.
Definitely, and we know he's a lock to make this roster too.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. All right. Speaking of cuts and locks, let's go on to our next segment, talking about surprise cuts or trades moving forward. We mentioned in the opener about guys who may be good enough to start on other rosters, but not necessarily ours. Guys who have made this team in years prior, but are cut due to numbers. If it's up to you, who do you see either being cut or traded that would be a surprise to the fan base?
I got a couple. First one, and again, a lot of these for me is I'm not particularly hoping for them, but if we're talking about surprise trades or things that I can see possibly happening, the first one would be Zach Moss.
I'm assuming trade.
Yeah, trade. I'm going to start with trade. So these are guys that I think he's not going to get cut. And, I have nothing against Zach Moss at all. I think he's played through injury, and, he could very well have a breakout season, and that's great. I don't necessarily want him off the roster, but I think that with James Cook, you have that dynamic speed, catch the ball out of the backfield, guy that brings that fifth dimension to the roster, and Singletary they love, but Singletary has proven in the past that he can handle short yardage. if I had to compare them, to each other, I'd love to see the numbers. And this is just the face test. I'm not really quite sure what it would be, but I'd be very comfortable having him there. And then Taiwan Jones, is a special teams player that they love, and Smiley's a new coach, so I don't think he'll be off the roster. And then you have a Duke Johnson, and here's a guy you brought in. He does kind of the same thing as brain fart here as Cook,
Yeah.
but he also backs up kick returner. He backs up punt return. So he's a guy that can kind of do a couple things too, and he looked great in Miami last year. So Zach Moss is a guy that, do you see him re-signing with this team in 2 years? I don't. So, but at the same time, I expect him to be on this roster. So that's number one. Do you have any that you want to jump in before I go to the next one?
Yeah. So you already mentioned one of them. We'll stick on the offensive side of the ball. Taiwan Jones. Again, I don't necessarily see it happening, but if he's over the hill, if there's guys who are comparable to him that are younger that can give you something on offensive or defense in their given position, he may be a trade candidate or straight up release. I don't know what his cut ramifications would be, but he's a guy where the end probably comes quick for these special teams ace, and like a Metakevich, same thing. These guys are making good money and well deserved, but still, when you're out there restructuring contracts just to get under the cap before the beginning of the season, these are tough calls you got to make. So I'm going to stick with Taiwan Jones. I'll pass it over to you, and then I got another one on offense.
Okay. Is Taiwan Jones a captain on special teams?
That's a good question. I'm not sure.
I'm not
if
sure
anyone
if
in the
it's him
chat, let us know.
And you brought up Metakevich. It's another guy that, the possibility is always there with a Baylen Spector and some of these young guys that don't cost much money. And so you never really know, they can always be a surprise cut. Now, I don't really think that there's much of a trade value in those players. Maybe a Metakevich for a seventh or something. Taiwan Jones, maybe you're getting a 7th round pick in 2029. I don't know what you're getting there, but nothing against him. He fills his role nicely. You brought up a Cam Lewis, another very good player. If he shows that he can play safety, maybe a team calls for him. Maybe a Carolina, kind of like Darryl Johnson did a couple years ago, where he swapped a late round pick. Now, I don't, a UB product. I don't want to see him go. And again, these aren't things that I actually want to see. I could see it happening, because there's some value. These guys are good players, and other teams are going to come for them if they're not starting on this team. And a lot of times they just don't have a path to that starting spot because there's an all-pro player there. So yeah, those are a couple players that I was thinking.
Two before we move on. Jamison Crowder, I believe he's just under $2 million on a 1-year contract, so it's not a terrible dead cap. But again, if you're trying to get some of these young guys rostered, your Isaiahs, or even if you're trying to get a Blackshear, sneak them onto the roster somehow, which I don't think is going to happen. But looking for some of these young guys or trying to make space at other positions. Jamison Crowder is a guy out there. He hasn't shown us a ton, and I don't believe that they are scared to, as long as they believe that Khalil Shakir is mature enough to handle, these reps. And again, you don't really know until you start the regular season. I mean, the preseason week 2 is totally different than week 15. But if they believe that, then that'll at least give you the opportunity to have, again, another guy who can back up every position in that wide receiver core. So I could definitely see Crowder, although like you said, I would like to have him as insurance. But again, how many snaps is he going to see if Isaiah McKenzie is really has a stranglehold on that spot? And then lastly, I could see Shaq Lawson getting cut. he's a guy where he made a lot of money and then bounced around year after year. And he was watching football at the end of last year. Nobody picked him up. He's on a vet minimum contract here. I think he'll make the team. But again, he's that fifth man on the roster. He's not playing special teams. Love Shaq, but it's a numbers game. I definitely could see him getting the axe there. Before we move on, we got a couple
I got a good
from
one for you too.
Okay, go ahead. I'm just
Before
going
we
to
move on, and this one I was just thinking about this. This is out of left field, but hey, the NFL is a crazy place sometimes. But what do we got? Maybe a seventh because I feel like forgetting somebody other than Kumaro. Well, you know you have Hodgins there, so you're gonna be there. You go. But if what could you possibly see any kind of scenario where Jordan Poyer is traded? I mean, in a championship, a team that's playing for a championship, I don't see this happening. I really don't. But they seem to love Jaquan Johnson. Jordan Poyer is, I'm not sure how old he is, 31, 32.
He's all right, yeah.
32.
I think he's 32.
Yeah. You know, his contract is out. He wants a big money contract. Is there any situation where a team that's vying for a Super Bowl comes and trades a second or third round pick where you...
I think the Bills would do it. I think the Bills would do it. But there would have to be a contract laid out for him before it happens.
Right. Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah. So I don't know if somebody's willing to give a 4-year contract to a 32-year-old safety who, again, his game is not necessarily finesse. That dude throws his body at defenders 100% of the time. So, I mean, I could see it just to try to get some value, but I think the Bills also realize, you know, he's so important to what this organization stands for ever since Sean McDermott came in. I mean, it's kind of cool to see that the two, you know, outside of Josh Allen, the two poster boys of 2017 are a backup nickel corner in George or a Hyde, and you know a second or third. I mean, he started in Cleveland, but that's Cleveland. You know, he was a fringe starter, so he means a lot to the team, to the fans. But like you said, business is business. It's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities. Do I want it to happen? No. But unfortunately, he's not going to be on this roster once his contract's up, because the Bills will probably be willing to throw a year onto that. But that means nothing to a guy who's trying to make his last bit of bread. And if he gets injured and the season's over, you know, he's not going to get that big contract again. So I don't know if you want to elaborate more on that, but that's kind of where I stand.
No, and I'm with you. I mean, you look at 2017, you had Hyde, Poyer, and Trey White come in, and those guys can't break up. No, I don't want them to break up, and none of us do. But like I said, the NFL can be crazy sometimes, and I would be completely shocked too. But that's what this is surprise. You know, we're talking about surprise things that.
Yeah, who thought the Bills
happen.
were going to get LaShawn McCoy when they did?
Right,
Same situation.
And I loved Kiko Alonso. Yeah. You know, he was a fan favorite, and Poyer. I mean, Poyer is a better player, and I don't think this happens. I just had a guy, again, on the wrong side of 30, that's looking for big money. We're against the salary cap, and you have a player that in Jaquan Johnson that looks like a real player, you know, and sometimes you got to make difficult decisions. So I would be shocked. I'd be absolutely shocked, but my mind wouldn't be blown.
Yeah, no, you're 100% correct. We've seen more bizarre, crazier things happen, and I mean, in all reality, I think they play out the season and then you kind of go your separate ways. But again, you know, if somebody called and asked, you know, if they offered a second-round draft pick, are you going to say no as the Bills, especially with all the hype around Jaquan Johnson? Everyone's talking about how he's ready. You know, he's starter material on a loaded defensive back. So it's definitely not out of the realm of possibilities. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next segment. Obviously, we got a game coming on tomorrow night. Not much to look forward to outside of roster battles and these fringe players. Players who can move the needle with a final preseason game. We got a couple in mind. Bobby Hart. You think that he'll be able to show enough to make this roster, given what we already discussed with Ford being traded?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think he's already made this roster, like it or not.
Regardless of how he plays, so we think that the needle is set?
I do. And we've talked off camera. I think he's here until at least Ike Butker is back from his stint on PUP or whatever it is he's on. He does have that positional flexibility to play both tackle spots. We don't want to see him at tackle. We found out last year.
Certainly not left tackle.
It's certainly not left tackle. But that he does have that positional flexibility that McDermott loves so much and that Bean loves so much. And I think you kind of hit on it before. They like his mentality. He's been kicked rocks on, buried in the dirt by fans, including ourselves, and he's still here. And so he's got a big heart, and hopefully he turns the corner with Cromer. But I think he's on this roster already until at least Butker is back.
Jason asks if he's a better guard than Van Rotten. Van Rotten, the thing that I like about him is he can play center. But if you are keeping Greg Manns and he's not injured and you have Ryan Bates, I think Van Rotten kind of becomes redundant.
Yeah, agreed. Van Roten. I'm not quite sure. I thought it was Van Roten, but if it's Van Rotten,
it might be.
Unfortunate. But I think they, we've seen in the past that the Bills like to keep a backup center that's just a backup. We know Ryan Bates can slide over and play that position, but I expect him to be the starting guard. So if you lose Mitch Morse, I don't see them
musical chairs.
Yeah, I don't see them disrupting two positions to fill one and bringing in.
We saw it last year, and it was not a good sign.
No. So I do think that Van Roten or Manns makes the roster. I think it's Manns over Van Roten, though.
All right. We spoke about Quentin Morris. We kind of laid out his path to the roster. Cam Lewis, we did as well. What about Isaiah Hodgins? He's really been a guy that a lot of fans have fallen in love with. They love the size, and a guy who's been injured the last couple of years, finally making some hay. Can he move the needle? Can he do enough?
Yeah, tough call there. I think he can move the needle, but I think, and somebody mentioned it earlier, I think it's kind of a Hodgins versus Kumaro thing. So again, we spoke on it before. Once you get to the back end of the roster and you're that's maybe that sixth receiver, I mean, if you're pushing it at 7, I don't think they keep 7. But if they do, then you have a better shot to keep 7, obviously. But I think it's going to be tough because he's tried to play special teams. You see them putting him there, and always felt he was great. Red, yeah. I feel like he could be. He could be, but we haven't seen it because the guy can't stay healthy. And Kumaro brings that value on special teams, who's also not a small body. And, Hodgins is he's a bigger, I think he's taller than Gabe Davis, but is he that much of a difference in body type to a Gabe Davis? I want all these guys to make the roster. You root for them all, and you want to see these guys come well and end up on, doing what you think they can do when you draft it. But unfortunately, it doesn't always go that way. Can you keep him on the practice squad again? I hope so.
Yeah. He's going to the Giants if we try to put him on the practice squad. But
yeah,
like you said, for me, the only way he moves the needle is by showing out on special teams. He's got to do it. There's got to be. Luckily, we're not talking about replacing a gunner. I think gunner is probably the most coveted special teams specialist position for this team or for these coaches. But he has to show up on the special teams. He's got to do more, and he's working on it. It may be a numbers thing. We got something in the comments about Baylen Spector. He needs a good game to make the team and replace Medikevich, maybe. Again, I don't know what Medikevich, his cap hit would be. He's making a good deal of money, but what do you think, Baylen Spector? Can he make this roster?
Well, that's a numbers game as well. How many linebackers do you keep, on a team that plays primarily nickel?
The good news is Andre Smith is suspended. So as it is right now, you got Tremaine, you got Matt, you got Terrell Bernard, and then you got Medikevich, and then Dotson. So that seems like your 6, right?
Yeah.
On the outside looking in, do you keep 7 on a roster where you only play 2 linebackers 95% of the time?
7 linebackers, no shot.
Yeah.
No. 6 is pushing it, and for this team. Another good player, I think he'll be a practice squad guy.
He may be Medikevich's replacement in the future. Get him reps on special teams. They seem to, again, people are going to be looking at the Bills to pick, but are people going to be signing him to start or potentially be a backup, a primary backup in the NFL? Probably not.
Yeah, it only takes that one team to have fallen in love with a player during the draft, and man, we were picking 2 picks after we really wanted him, and yada yada yada, and then their guys in camp aren't showing up, so I guess it only takes one to claim. But I don't really. Once you get down to those draft picks in the 6th and 7th round, it's much easier to get these guys onto the practice squad, and that's where I think he ends up. I don't see him on the 53-man roster this year.
There's probably half a dozen Baylen Spectors across the NFL right now, so I agree there with you. Before we move on to our final segment, is there anybody else who you think may be able to acquire a roster spot with this last preseason game?
I think Brandon. I like Brandon Bryant. I think he makes this roster. I have him in my 53.
Now, do you have 5 DNs or 4 DNs?
I have 5 DNs and 5 D tackle.
Did we keep 10 defensive linemen last year? Right, if I believe so.
I think we kept 11. We kept 11 last year. 6 DNs and 5 D tackles.
So yeah, you're right. I think he's a rosterable player. But like we said, for everything, it comes down to a numbers game when your team is this damn good.
This is going to be
this is not his first rodeo
to make. Right.
I agree. All right, so we're going to move up. Anything else before we move on?
No, I was just going to say he will be on an NFL roster, whether it's the Bills or another team.
Yeah, absolutely. He'll be on a 53. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was in our division or, again, down in Jersey. Our last segment before we get into our predictions is going to be a new one. It's the tweet of the week. So I'm going to show you 2 tweets. You don't know either. You haven't seen either. And then you're going to just give us a winner. So
I hope it's a Cole Beasley tweet.
Yeah, no Cole Beasley today, but it was a short week, so.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second. Let's see. All right, so the first one. Fox Sports NFL. The blank will finish number 1 in the AFC East. Fox, listen, I know any given Sunday, any team can go out there and win, but is this an honest question, or is this just getting likes? There's no way in hell any other team besides even if Josh Allen doesn't play every single game or every game that matters. Who he got? Who he got outside of that?
Well, first of all, you better knock on wood with that shit. Josh Allen is playing every damn game,
except for the last one.
But what am I doing with this? What if the New York Jets
No,
and
yeah.
the
No, you don't got to pick. You don't got to pick anything. This is just
okay.
the first of 2 tweets. So
Okay.
just comment on this while I get the other one up.
Okay, well, the fact that the Fox Sports NFL is putting it up between the Jets and the Bills and who's going to win the AFC East. The Jets are going to be lucky if they win a game, an interdivisional game in the AFC East. And then the Dolphins is like, they had
their little hype moment for a
They
bit.
get one player with Tyreek Hill, and all of a sudden they're world beaters. They forget who they have at quarterback there. Good luck getting that guy the ball with Tua at quarterback. So, no. The Bills are going to win the division,
Period. All right. Now we'll move on to the second one. Yeah, give you the other one. All right. So this one's a little bit of a thread, and I'll walk you through it. So Ian Rappaport mentioned about Matt Hawk winning or getting traded or released, meaning the punt god, which, yes, we know there's allegations going on now, but this was picked before this, wins the Buffalo punter battle. And this guy, Mr. Trev Report. With a little Patriots logo in the background. Punt god who hasn't played a single regular season snap. And that may be the case for the rest of his career, but let's assume otherwise. And then our friend over here, Colin B, says, we'll probably be inactive against the Patriots anyway, so no worries.
That one's great. I love that. That's so, yeah. I mean, that's the winner.
That's the winner, right?
Yeah.
On a multitude of reasons.
Yeah. I mean, what was the playoff game? I mean, what did we go? 7 for 7 on drives with max points, max yardage.
Yeah. It's a perfect game.
It's a perfect game.
All right, let's close it out here. Who's the one player you're looking forward to most watching?
This week. Are we talking about this week?
This week, yes.
Oh, wow. I'm super excited. This is the last preseason game. Who am I looking forward to? Let's go with, we just talked about him. Let's go with Hodgins. Let's see what he can do.
That's a good pick. He was, yeah. I got a couple of them, but he was one of them. I'm assuming he's going to be rolling with the first unit that gets out there. And I think Carolina's starting they're playing their starters for a quarter or two. Yeah,
I think the guy Matt Rule said he's going to go on feel. So
it's very interesting how, these teams are all over the place. They haven't really unified into what we had prior, where it was like the first preseason game, no one plays. The second one, you get a series or two. The third ones is the bona fide warm up. It's interesting how everyone's changing it.
Yeah, you saw Todd Bowles down there at Tampa Bay. They
Brady's starting.
Yeah, they said if you're healthy on this roster, you will be playing.
Yeah.
So,
and I think one of their big time, a guard got injured, and obviously the other one retired. So,
their guard and center are lost for the year.
Yeah, so that's that'll be interesting. All right, for me, let's go with the one who I was most, how would you say, questionable about, and that's going to be our good friend AJ Epinesa.
Oh.
Let's hope he gets some snaps against whoever their left or right tackle is, and let's have more of those Miami-type games that he had last year.
Yeah. Damn, for sure. I really thought you were going to go Cam Lewis. I thought you were going to go Cam Lewis.
So Cam Lewis is a guy. I want to see him at safety. That's true. I already have a lot of confidence with him on the boundary and in the slot. I kind of know how I feel about him. I'm just more curious to see if he can overcome those numbers games, because there's no way he's making it through to the practice squad. I mean, this guy has NFL experience. He has that cachet of being able to play multiple positions, and he's on the Bills. Jason says, Blackshear, listen, one of my questions in the beginning of the year was who's the new Duke Williams, and I think Blackshear is that guy. He's great. He's awesome. He's not going to make the team, sadly, and warranted. And then Kenny goes with Benford and Elam against DJ Moore. I like the matchup, but I've seen pretty much all I really need. Like, I'm going to be watching them, but Epinesa is a guy where it didn't, I went back and watched the game last week and saw some of the noise he made, and I'm just curious to see what'll happen against ones, because Denver is not a good team to begin with, and they certainly lack the depth, and it was evident last week.
Yeah.
Score prediction. Doesn't mean anything, but let's do it.
How many games have the Bills won in a row for the preseason?
Was it 10?
It's got to be 10. So I'm going to continue with the Bills. I think Carolina gets some points being that they start their starters. They start their starters. I'm going to go Carolina 27, Buffalo 28.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, let's let it keep. Let's the preseason dominance roll another year. We'll go Bills 31, Carolina 26.
You wanted to go 27. You just didn't want to agree.
Yeah, yeah. And also, I just, in the preseason, I feel like there's just, you get weird scores. So, see a lot of field goals. And
yeah, they'll probably, the Bills are 28, but whatever. I was right week one.
All right. Last thing before we leave is a hot take. Give me one hot take that's going to happen tomorrow. Anything. Number, stat, prediction.
Well, I went with Hodgins as my player to watch. So let's pick Hodgins to show out a little bit with 5 catches for 92 yards and a touchdown.
Very nice. I'm going to say one of the 2 rookie cornerbacks intercepts Baker Mayfield in the first half.
I like it.
And we'll roll into the regular season with some steam.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for us. Cody, you got anything else you want to say before we get out of here?
No. Just looking forward to the final roster. I'm sure some fans will have their hearts broken for a player like a Blackshear if he doesn't make the team, or Cam Lewis or Nick McLeod or one of these guys. We're all going to have our difference of opinions, but soon enough, this team will be what it's going to be going into week one there. So I'm excited, and that's pretty much it. Go Bills!
Yeah, that's for sure. Preseason, or the season, snuck up on us. It's we're less than 2 weeks away. Not quite sure if we'll be. We're definitely going to do a show the Wednesday prior. Not sure about next week in between. Maybe we'll do. If we do, maybe we'll have like a season's prediction or whatnot. But other than that, we will catch you for the home opener or the season opener, regardless, on Wednesday. And thanks for tuning in, everyone. Please like and share, comment, all that good stuff, and go Bills.
Let's go Buffalo.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming to rep the East. Buffalo bad with a vengeance, we resurrected the team, man, we dangerous. Watch for these horns, they lacerate and cut. We don't play no game while we play this game, no, I playing us. You know what it's about, you made me wanna shout. They said to take it now, we took another route. Deuces to the drought, play through all the doubters, finger pointing and laughing. The ones that was talking that trash are the same ones circling wagons, we ain't having it. Dominate divisions ever since we put the L in it. Knocks the competition out the stadium like hammer fist. Stephon Diggs a grave and he pays respects to the cornerbacks that can't cover quickness, then he catches it. In 1995 to 2020, break the streak. Kept the faith in every season for the team, cause I believe. Taught me no matter how many times you're down, do not accept defeat. Feel like number 17. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen, yeah. What? You got me feeling like I'm Josh. Okay. You got me feeling like I'm Josh Allen, yeah. Josh. Yeah.
Got me feeling like I'm
Who? Josh. Yeah.
Josh Allen.
Yeah.